Welcome to Blade HQ, everybody. Today I'm with Theo.
Good to see you, George.
We're talking about OTFs.
Let's talk knives.
All right, Theo, what's the first knife on the table?
First one here is the Smith & Wesson OTF. This one's a single action OTF. So instead of it being like the other ones we're gonna talk on the table, this one, once you push forward, you have to push a button to pull it back in. But that's just kind of different than most other ones we're gonna talk about.
Yeah, I really like a single action for the reason that it locks up really nicely. Like with the double actions, their locks are fine. It's not a symbol of bad quality if it's open and it wiggles just a little bit. It's just sort of the way the knife works. But on a single action, you can get a much tighter lockup, and I really appreciate that. Also, you can get this like secondary lock. So I know that you fiddle with OTFs a little more than I have. So I'm gonna ask you, you're telling me that on a double action, you're not truly locked when you're open.
Yeah, so if you take an OTF, like a double action, when you push it forward, you've opened it, and then you pull it back in the same motion, but there's there's nothing you have to disengage to be able to close the lock again. There's nothing like this one where there's the button on the front you have to push to unlock it again. It's just pull it straight back.
Paragons, it's like a button lock.
Yeah, exactly. So once it's out, and you have to unlock it, and then you can close it. With any of the other double actions, you just pull the switch or whatever it may be for that mechanism to pull it right back in. There's no actual mechanism you have to disengage.
Okay, I like that. So I guess if you're like looking for some hard use stuff, maybe look at a single action.
Yeah, and it's about comfort as well. Kind of similar to like if you were into handguns and you're like, oh, I want to have a safety when I carry it. This one, you have a safety because of the way the single action works. They have a safety to keep it closed. There's also a safety to keep it open.
Okay, I like that. And what I like about this one is the price too. These are like $60, a little bit less than that.
And they're built like a tank. You can probably beat that thing up.
Yeah, it's got a nice glass breaker too. Sort of a good last ditch knife. Get yourself out of your car or out of other sticky situations.
Yeah.
I think that's where OTFs really shine, is they are like you can apply them to a lot of roles, but these are tactical knives.
I would say so. I think that's one reason why they've had some legal issues is that they're considered more tactical, so they have that kind of facade of being a little more intimidating. Moving on to the next one, we got the AKC F16. This one is a double action, so like we were talking about before, this one you just push straight out and it's out. You have to unlock it to close it. This one's just a double action, so this slider here on where my thumb is at, you just push it forward, opens it, you pull it back towards yourself and it closes it. One of the great things about OTFs that we've talked about before is that you never touch the blade, so they're really safe. Even though they're kind of like considered more scary and tactical and everything like that, at no point when you, the user, are using it, is the blade in contact with your hand. So, for example, I don't know what you're carrying today, but for myself, it's like, if I open the blade, I have to touch the blade to close it, and my fingers can be in the way of it as I close it. That's never an issue with an OTF. It comes out and it goes right back in. My fingers are never in the way.
Yeah, I think that also gives you a bit of an advantage in that you can have a dagger. So if you look at this has two edges.
Yeah.
So like I don't have to push on an edge to close the knife. It's just out of the way. So that gives me also
double utility.
Double utility. And I mean, I've seen some Microtechs where they have one plain edge and one serrated edge.
Yeah, I really like that. Being able to have the option of choosing whether you want to use a serrated edge or a plain edge rather than being forced to have a combo edge. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I also love on these F16s. First of all, they're very affordable. And second of all, they come in a million colors. This one's kind of the Stormtrooper variant with the white and the black. It's good looking, but I personally like the ones. I mean, I've seen some with like copper inlays on them. Like they get good looking.
I really like red ones, like that really screaming red they have. It's gorgeous to me.
Yeah. Also, they name them after jets.
Yeah, that's pretty good. They got the F20 as well, yeah.
Yeah.
This one's the X, correct, or is it
the Evo?
Evo X.
Yeah. Evo X. And this might be my favorite AKC OTF.
It's pretty nice. It's almost like a budget version of the Infidel.
Yeah, the Infidel. Probably the most iconic of the knives of its size and spec.
Yeah, really similar handle shapes, really similar actions. One of the other variations of OTFs is that there's the side kind of switch, and then there's the scale switch where this switch is on the scale. So you can see the way I'm holding it, this is where this button is, and this is where this one is. So they're a little bit different orientation when you open them, but the action mechanism is the same. They function the same. They just have a different orientation. They feel a little different.
If I'm left-handed, so I'm made for an action like this one, because once again, you get that dagger, so you have the same thing, and I don't have to move a pocket clip, I don't have to reverse anything. I can just simply move this to my left hand, and I'm going to have the exact same experience as a righty.
And they're super simple in terms of being able to be ambidextrous. You don't have to worry about any sort of locks or anything like that. Again, no lock, pops right open, pops right closed.
Yep. And I really like that one. Those go for about 120. It's a really great deal. You're getting an AUS-8 blade. If you want to step up that quality just a little bit, get a true anodized handle, get a bit of a smoother action in a D2, then I look at the Infidel. But if you're on a budget and you're just looking for something to fiddle with that action, the Evo is my pick.
So the fourth and final type of OTF we're going to talk about is a manual OTF. This one, instead of having any sort of mechanism that fires the blade or anything like that, this is just, you push down this little button here and you slide the blade open. And then it's the same kind of way you slide it closed. These ones are really nice because they sort of act like a box cutter, where if it's got the double-edged blade and you can sharpen this, so it's got the utility of every other kind of pocket knife that you enjoy that you can sharpen, maintain. But you can adjust the size of the blade. And I think that you mentioned like a pencil grip is kind of like something you would think about.
If you're like cutting stuff X-Acto knife style,
yeah.
Then if you want a little more edge, you can pull it out and slice your apple, open your letter, whatever you're up to.
And these are probably like the most unassuming type of OTF. Like you just slide it out. It's easy to slide out. You could basically just have it pass as a box cutter.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same mechanism.
Yeah.
And that's legal in California. So. Yeah, and if you want a collapsible knife that has that dagger edge and has the ability to open in the safest fashion, then I think this Boker Slike is a solid option.
And it's like inexpensive, but it like works really well, and it's super slim. So if you're like wearing slacks or something like that, it's not going to weigh you down or anything like that. Yeah. Great piece.
One of my favorite features is how slim it is. You can see there, it is paper thin, and then it has this big deep carry pocket clip. So once again, I'm talking about tactical stuff. If I was looking for a last ditch knife, I would just tuck this inside my waistband and hide this clip behind my belt. That would be super easy to carry. I would forget it was there, but I'd always have access to a good, strong dagger when I needed it.
Yeah, and to be clear with this one, you have to push down onto that little thumb stud to move it open and closed. It's not like the other ones where there's nothing like holding it closed. This one does have an action to keep it do that.
Yep. But hey, manual OTFs are a thing. I didn't see a lot of them. I only saw a few customs for a while, but now I've seen a few from Kershaw and this one from Boker. But keep your eye out. Manual OTFs are a new thing. Back in the double action sphere, though, we got the Kalashnikov series.
Yeah, this is like an adaptation of the automatic that we have and everybody seems to love. This is just like an OTF variation of it.
Yep. And I love this because just like that Kalashnikov, you're getting a D2 blade and these nice, big, comfortable finger grooves, deep carry pocket clip. And it's a Kalashnikov.
Yeah, I'm actually really a fan of this. The way that the handle on this one is, most other OTFs that you're gonna see are very similar. They're very like rectangular. This one's got a lot of the finger grooves, which feels great because when you're wanting to grip onto something and actuate the switch, you get very good grip on it to be able to do that. A few of these, they're slimmer, so when you pull on it, you feel your fingers slide a little bit. But with this one, there's no movement. You're locked right in. It's great.
Yeah, I love the Kalashnikov Auto, and I've said before, it's a great collectible knife because you can get it in all the colors ever and all that. But I feel like the thing to really put the crown on your Kalashnikov collection is this OTF.
Just need a Desert Warrior one of those too.
Oh my goodness, you're a genius. Anyway, going from a big Boker OTF to small, we got the USB. And it's not just something for people who haven't discovered cloud storage, but it does look like that. This is tiny and keychain size, and that's useful for a lot of things.
Yeah, and it's super lightweight. Our social media manager, he carries an orange one of these on his keys, and he loves the thing. It doesn't seem to weigh his keys down or anything like that.
And it's super fidgety.
Yeah, and they're really useful. Like, it's a D2 blade, so it's not like you're getting anything super cheap, like 440 or anything like that you wouldn't want to use.
Yeah. No, I like me some 440 sometimes. I think it has a place.
That's fair.
But I think for something like this, where it's going to be opening boxes and that sort of thing all day, I might like the edge retention of D2. But yeah, to take it sort of to the next level, everything we've seen so far is a fairly budget sphere, but taking it up to a bit more of a premium side is this Boker USA OTF, made by Hogue. So you're going to see Hogue here on the logo. If you switch it to this side, you'll see Boker. And this is made by Hogue. And Hogue makes their own line, but I really like the OEM work they do for other companies. Recently, they made a really nice folder for CRKT, but I think they did a good job with this one with this texture. I was talking to Jim McNair, who was in charge of the Livewire, which we'll talk about more. Well, he helped with the Livewire at least. He was saying that with an OTF, it gets really hard to do something with the rectangle that you have to include. And I think they did a great thing with just making this an attractive texture that's both grippy and appealing.
Yeah, it's like one of those like more subdued models because a lot of these are kind of more aggressive, especially like speaking of other Bokers, this one is clearly more aggressive in the handle shape.
Yeah.
But this one is like more subdued, but kind of like conversational in the way that it comes across. It's like, oh, what is that? Rather than, oh, it's a knife.
Yeah. If there was such thing as a gentleman's OTF, I think it'd be something like this.
I'd say that go on the list, yeah.
Yeah. And then going from there to a bit more
Like
deliberate
a true Hogue.
Yeah.
And you can tell this one's like, they're both manufactured from Hogue because one, the markings, but also the same clip, same switch, and then very similar, like fuller on the spine of the blade there.
I think those things look so good.
They look great.
I imagine this little part right here is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Would be a bit of a challenge to grind, but it looks cool. Yeah, what I think is cool about this one is this is the only knife on the table. Am I correct in saying that? I am. This is the only one with a G10 handle. They have this, I think they call it G-Mascus or something.
Yeah, Hogue is great with their, I mean, they do gun grips, so they're doing crazy stuff with their G10 all the time, so they flexed it a little bit with this piece.
Yeah, but everything else, like these have to nestle a mechanism in them, and it's a lot easier to bed that in metal. But Hogue, I think they knocked it out of the park because this feels as solid. You can see there's actually a bit of a metal frame in there that holds it all, but in your hand, all the way around, you've got a bit more of a supple G10 than the aluminum.
And it's nice that it's not as cold. I feel like a lot of it's not like a negative, it's just like a feel difference. Most of the OTFs, if not all of the other ones except for maybe two, are all aluminum. And that's always kind of cold when you first pick it up. The G10 is always that kind of like body temperature feeling one when you pick it up. It never has like a real distinct temperature. It just is, it feels different in the hand because of that.
One thing I really like about this slide they use, I don't think you could find it on the compound here, but on the incursion, sometimes they'll put a tritium vial in the button.
I have seen that, that's pretty neat.
It is really neat. I love me some tritium.
I think in talking about switches, we should mention these ones are a little bit firm, but like one of the things about OTFs is that because there's no locking mechanism open or closed for the double actions, the switch is the safety. So on the lower end ones, you'll probably find that the switches are a little bit more easy to actuate. I think that's mostly because they're not considered more hard use, something similar like this compound here, which is kind of like geared towards being a tactical use tool, where you want the actual slider to be the safety of it. So it's fairly easy to push these forward, and then when you get to the very end, it's pretty tough, and then it pops open. So some of these less expensive ones, they're easy all the way through the slide. There's no definitive kind of like wall that you have to break to open it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
As do I. I'd rather it wasn't popping up in my pocket or if I was running around in the field or something like that.
Yeah, I've had autos open in my pocket, but I've never had an OTF open. Anyway, going from Hogue to Paragon. Paragon makes some of the most interesting single actions.
Yeah.
And this one's the X-Bolt. And you just push that button and you get this blade. It's chisel ground, so it's nice and pokey. And I like it. It's got that, it's a double-edged tanto. You don't see those a whole lot, and it's got this serrated top edge as well.
Yeah, that was one of the benefits you were talking about earlier about having like double-edged blade lets you have serrated on one side and plain on the other.
Yeah, but these ones, I think I held the button a little too hard there. They normally launch out pretty quick. And a nice aluminum handle with this skeletonization, so you can see through the blade and everything. I love this groove, it gives it a nice look. I think OTFs like this are perhaps the most conversation-y, especially the single actions, because they just...
Do you want to talk about this one in terms of conversation piece? Because it's like the bigger brother.
So if you're looking for something practical and everyday carryable, the X-Bolt's going to be your man. However, if you're looking for something that'll make you feel like a Sith Lord,
that one will do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably a 5-inch blade on that. Absolutely, that doesn't even fit in frame. Look at that. Just a huge knife. Secondary safety as well. And then you charge it up and it just boink. It launches. This is a conversation piece of an OTF.
For sure. One of the things you just mentioned with the handle safety, something we didn't mention earlier, is that with single actions, the safety is one reason they're kind of important, is because the blade, once you let it go, it just keeps going. With something like a double action, you can have it pop open and close really quickly, but I'm gonna use the table for example. If you hit something hard, the blade does this thing where it just goes off track. So now it's not gonna be able to fire at all until you pull it all the way out, and then you can reactivate the mechanism. A single action such as these Paragons, when you push that button, it just keeps going. So if you hit yourself or hit something, it's gonna go straight through. So you really wanna have those safeties that the Paragons have, as well as this Smith & Wesson.
Or, as you can see, I'm holding onto the lever right here that swings this. If I accidentally let go of that, it's just gonna shoot right back out.
Yeah.
So I think You might think the single action is safer, but I think I'm a little less terrified of a double action. Also, a thing to note is he was mentioning that if your OTF comes off track on the double actions, like this guy right here, if it comes off track like this, your knife is not broken. Like, don't even worry, it'll just come right back. It is designed for that. Next up, though, is one of the most new on the scene and groundbreaking OTFs there are, and that is the Kershaw Livewire.
I love this thing.
Yes.
This is probably one of my favorite ones on the table.
Yeah, so Jim McNair over at Kershaw came and did a video with us, and he told us about this. He worked with Matt Diskin to design this thing, and they worked on it for years. And they had a functioning prototype, and they took it to their superiors, and they're like, okay, what do you think of this? And they said, make that action the easiest action there is. And they might have done it. It's a very easy to work action.
It's like sliding on glass. It is very smooth.
Yeah. And I love what they did with this handle because it's very easy to just turn it into a rectangle. But it's nice and grippy. It's got just the right amount of texture in the right places.
It's got like nuanced chamfers and curves to it.
Yep. And then the pocket clip sits at an angle. I know that's something that everybody's like, that's kind of a weird clip. But honestly, I don't mind it. It sits in the pocket well, and it sits so deep, and at that angle, you would assume it's like a pen or something. And if you're carrying an OTF.
We were talking about this earlier too. If you squeeze on it, even like it's kind of a weird shape to it, or like the angle to it's a little weird, but if you like are squeezing on that thing because you're cutting through something really hard, there's no hot spots to it. And it's surprising because the way that the bill of it kind of pops up, you would expect it to poke into your finger, but it's really not bad at all.
And especially for its price, this thing's going well under $300. It's a really great deal, especially for the 20 CV USA made anodized aluminum. You're getting a lot of the quality of the high end at a much more mid-range price for OTFs.
Yeah, this thing is I really do love this. Would be one of like my top ones on the table for sure.
In that same vein of like great quality and build, USA made for a great price, the SOG Pentagon OTF is a really solid option. This one has that front scale action like we talked about earlier. And have you seen a bigger button than that? I know in my autos video, I talked about how I really appreciate a good big button, and that it makes it easy to run the action.
It's like it's almost like a double slider because there's a hump here and a hump there, so it's almost like two of these, and you have a bunch of different grips you can do on that to be able to open and close it, not have to be kind of fumbling around finding one button.
Yeah, this is one of the bigger knives on the table. In fact, I believe it is second or third biggest. Yeah, the Estiletto is the biggest. But this one, if I grab it all the way back here, I can open it. If I grab it closer up here into these choils, I can open it. And I really appreciate that. It's easy to actuate even though it's huge. And I don't know what they did with this mechanism, but it has some of the best lockup of any OTF.
I think it's probably the best on the table. That is super solid. I haven't touched a deadlock yet, but I think that bar the deadlock, which does not move at all.
Feels like a fixed blade.
Probably the most solid out of all of them.
Yeah, also, if you want a Hogue deadlock, you have to track down a custom at a show, and it'll cost you north of $1,500. However, this thing is, what, $350, I want to say? I could be wrong on that. But, it has very good lockup, and it is good looking. S35VN blade, aluminum handle, USA made. It's an accessible OTF. I wouldn't take a deadlock to war. I would take this to war. Anyway, going from war, though,
to something fancy.
Something fancy and everyday carryable. You have the Guardian Tactical Recon 035, and I like this one. I picked it because it's got these foxy carbon fiber.
They are very slick.
Yeah, and I would say when it comes to smooth double actions, it's down to the Livewire or this.
I would agree with that. This one feels so good, and the slider, like the slider on both of these feels great, but I really like the way that this one has like a two different steps to it. Instead of it being like the kind of one mountain in the middle, it's kind of low on one side and then tall on the other side. So when you push forward, you have a little bit of a ramp to get your thumb behind, and then when you're pulling back, you just go drag right on the top. It feels great. Like the action on this one, it is so good. They do a great job with these.
Yeah, and I think this lends itself well to the everyday carry for that reason, because you don't need such a huge hump. Like let's say you grab your Microtech Ultratech, which I think is a great tactical option. This hump is fairly large, but that allows you to really get on it if your hand is sweaty or you're in a glove or something. But if I'm just at work and I want access to a knife so I can do something and I don't want to use a folder because I like OTFs. This is gonna be great because it's a lot thinner in my pocket, but then it uses jimping on the retraction.
Yeah. And it's not that aggressive jimping either. Like the Ultratechs are really great. Like we were playing with the, I don't know if you can see this on my thumb, but my thumb is super chewed up from playing with all these the past couple of days. This one has been, the Guardian Tactical has been really generous to not be as aggressive, so it's not tearing my fingers up as I'm opening and closing it. Yeah. And if it's just like an everyday piece and you're just kind of like fidgeting with it, you don't want to be losing your thumb meat for no reason.
Yeah, this might be one of the, I think it's down to this one of the Livewire for the most comfortable knife on the table. But I think there's a new challenger entering that ring. I was like, yeah, those are really comfortable, but then I saw the Benchmade Shootout.
The Shootout is great. It's almost like an OTF version of the bug out. It basically is the OTF version of the bug out.
I think more of the OTF version of the bailout.
That's more reasonable.
Yeah, it's got a crew wear blade. Crew wear?
Yeah, that one is crew wear.
Crew wear. Okay, I always get crew wear and M4 mixed up on these out-ending knives. But yeah, a very smooth action on this one as well. A bit of a taller button, so I would say it's closer to that Ultratech in terms of its tactical utility. But it's got this CF Elite handle. So that's a nylon that's reinforced with carbon fibers. So it's really tough. And we were like, is that really that tough? And so we sent it to our buddy who ran it over with his truck, and it was fine.
Was it this specific one?
I don't think it was this specific one. I think it was his personal one.
Gotcha.
But I think he bent the clip, but the handle and the action still run into
totally fine. I like that so we have this is like the first edition. I think this is actually the first edition. It probably says it on the blade there.
The first production run.
But the new ones you were taking a look at SHOT Show, they have like the two different colors, and I don't think the colors have the glass breaker on the back of those. But those new colors look so good to me. Like the white one, it's like Mesa colored, and then the Seafoam.
I like the Crater Blue. That's the one I'm after.
That's a good one too. That has the same colored blade and switch, correct?
Yeah, so I think if you're looking for a tactical EDC crossover, Benchmade Shootout's a great one.
Yeah, the action's great on these, feels great, very light. I like how light it is. I think it's one of the lightest feeling on the table, but not like cheap feeling light. It just is light.
Yeah, I think Benchmade really dials that in on all their knives. Well, all the knives that are aiming to be light. I mean, the Infidel is anything but light. Same with the Adamas. But yeah, so this is the Infidel. We've sort of been teasing it the whole time. I would say this is one of the more iconic of the OTFs on the table.
I would say so.
It's been around forever. And it's just covered in jimping, and it's a McHenry Williams design. It like the ones we said earlier, it is 100% ambidextrous. Left-handies, right-handies.
Very similar to this one in terms of the look.
Yeah.
They're very similar. I think that this one would probably draw a lot of inspiration from the Infidel if I had to guess.
Yeah, but like you can't beat the OG here. You're getting that super tough D2 blade, anodized aluminum with this really nice bidirectional jimping and a sort of a reinforced slide here. On this one, it kind of just floats.
Yeah, you can if you have it in hand, you can see that this one has a little bit of a raise up against the scale. The Infidel, it rides in the scale, so it definitely feels more secure as you're pulling it back. It doesn't have any sort of wobble or flex to it.
Yeah. Anyway, I love the Infidel, and I don't know if you guys remember when I had my choir teacher on a while back. The Infidel was the first OTF I ever held, and it will always hold a place in my heart.
I think it's the first one I ever saw. Like when I first started getting into knives and collecting and stuff like that, I think the Infidel was the first one I ever encountered and was like, oh, how does that work? And it was one of the reasons I got more into knives and was curious about stuff like that, because it was like, beforehand it was all folders, and then after that it was like, oh, you can do more than just fold. It can shoot out the front and do different stuff like that.
So next up, we're going to talk about the last family of OTFs. And I would say this is the dynasty of OTFs. And that is the Marfiones. So Tony Marfione started Microtech, and his son, which we're going to talk about real quick, Anthony, made Heretic. And Heretic, like, you can tell this was made by somebody who was raised in the knife community making OTFs. He does really good work. And that's why if you ever go to Blade Show, you'll see the Heretic booth right by the Microtech booth, because it's a family and it's a dynasty of top quality tactical and everyday carry OTFs.
You can feel that this is like, oh, somebody who has been in the family, like you were saying, has made these things, but you also have like, well, you know that they have, and you feel the quality in it. So it's like, I can justify why the cost of this is as premium as it is, because I know that the reliability and the quality and the people behind it know what they're doing and are making really good pieces of work.
Yeah, and my favorite thing here is this pocket clip. So it's got the 2 screws, and then it comes down to 1, and the narrowing out, the skeletonizing of the pocket clip here, make it so it bends fairly easily, and then it's got this ball, so it's not going to chew up your pocket, but it's going to pinch nice and tight.
It's kind of similar to like the Todd Begg kind of situation, correct?
Yeah. You're getting custom level accoutrement on, I mean, this is the Heretic Manticore production knife. You can buy this at Blade HQ right now. And then a really nice double action. And I like this one. It's got this purple fat carbon. I guess it's camo, purple camo carbon fiber. It doesn't really show up here well in studio lighting, but in hand, it has just a little hint of purple.
It's almost like your shirt, actually, like the same kind of purple, but just like little hints of it around.
Yeah. I'm in love. I really like these Manticores. But this is the son. Let's talk about the father's company. And that is Microtech. We've got the Ultratech here, and this is the quintessential Microtech.
It's probably the most iconic Microtech, probably the most iconic OTF that I can think of. I mean, the Infidel is right up there, but honestly, just above it, I'd say the Ultratech.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe Infidel. Let us know in the comments. Which is the most iconic OTF? Ultratech or Infidel? Or if it's something else. I honestly don't know what else it'd be.
I'd love to know what else it could be, because that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, and what I love about Ultratechs, it comes in every color, every blade shape, every grind, every weird variation, and then also there's some Morpheon customs that go absolutely nuts.
There's no if you like the Ultratech, there's no Ultratech you're not gonna find that's like, oh, this is the perfect one. I wanted this grind, I wanted this color, I wanted this finish. You'll find it, it's there. The action on these is great. They're definitely more, like you were saying, more tactical oriented, with like the clip being more substantial to like hold onto whatever gear you're wearing. The slider is definitely more aggressive, and you've got a glass breaker on the back of it in case you need to get into anything. These are just built really well. The action fires and retracts really hard every time. We do have the Desert Warrior ones, so maybe that's not as tactical as you might want. But
it says Warrior in the title.
So yeah, it's true. It's a fun one though. I like it.
Yeah. I kind of wish we had more Microtechs on hand, because Microtech doesn't just have the Ultratech and its siblings, but it's also got, if you want big and tactical, they've got the Combat Troodon, they've got the Dirac, which is a lot like the Infidel in terms of its scale slide. There is a buffet of Microtech OTFs. So whatever you're looking for, I guarantee you there's a Microtech that will tickle you pink.
And they have pink ones, so yeah.
Yeah, they do have pink ones. Next up, we have the UTX-85, which is 85% the size of the Ultratech. And this is my personal favorite OTF.
Likewise, I like that it's like a very good EDC size. It's not too big that you're like, oh, this isn't too much blade, but it's not so small like the UTX-75 that you're not gonna be able to really do anything.
UTX-70, which is 70% the size. What I like about the 85 over the 70 personally is that you get the full girth of the Ultratech's handle. But this one is just a little baby man that just sits in your pocket.
It's an excellent letter opener, for sure.
Yeah, but
then
like,
you cut up a cucumber.
It's tiny, but you can feel that it's built like the Microtech tanks. Like, it is every bit as tough as the Ultratech, it's just...
It's not delicate. It's tiny, but it's not delicate. You could still beat on it if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I always said it was a little too small for my tastes, and then I saw the Desert Warrior, and I was like, I want that.
That was the first Desert Warrior that really tempted me. I was like, this makes sense for this.
It was a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love me some Microtech. And then the last knife on the table is, I would say, take your UTX-70, and then you're gonna take it to Photoshop. And then you're gonna grab the side of it, and you're gonna drag it way out this way, and you're gonna end up with the Exocet.
It's so goofy, but like it makes sense, but it's also really goofy, but in a good way. I mean that in a very good way.
Yeah, I would say this is the everyday carry Microtech. And the reason for that is, on a lot of these Microtechs, because of that thin blade, you're gonna get a fairly thick edge, which is really great in tactical situations, because you're not gonna break your knife. But for everyday carry, you want thin. So this has a very thin blade and a very tall grind, so you're getting an absolute paper-thin edge that will just glide.
And you get two edges, so you just glide through things twice as much.
Yeah, and they have a Tanto version as well. And also, this giant pocket clip, don't be fooled. I mean, you can put it in your pocket, and it'll be a big clip, but that's a money clip too. Throw some cards and some cash in there, and now your wallet is a double-action Microtech.
We were talking about this a little bit. We were like, oh, instead of like giving people, like, this is ritzy, but like instead of giving people like Rolexes when they graduate college, you could give them like an engraved Exocet or something like that, because this is a great spot for like an engraving host, or even the other side where there's a ton of flat area to choose from.
Yeah. Although I think Microtech knows that, and that's why on some of the Star Wars editions, you can get it with like whatever logo, if you're Empire or Resistance.
They do come in those like kind of like Jedi finishes. Those ones are pretty neat. They got like a couple like different like circles and then like a green blade or something like that.
Man, so there's somebody who used to work here, and he had the UTX-85 Jedi Master, which was black with a green blade, and then he also had the Ultratech Sith Lord, which was black with the red blade, and then he had a Combat Troodon Hellhound Bounty Hunter. And I'm like, my goodness, you are a nerd, and I am jealous. Anyway, that's a lot of OTFs. So, question, this was a bit of a buyer's guide. Which OTF are you buying?
I think I would probably go with the Livewire, and then maybe a little bit of a curveball. I think the USB, I like that one. The size is really good, so if I just wanted to throw it on my keys like our manager does, I would do that.
Yeah. I think I'm going Infidel. It's just classic. You love it. Anyway,
complete collection.
Yeah, let us know which OTF you're picking up, or which one's your favorite. This is but a sampling of the OTFs that you can find on BladeHQ.com. There are hundreds, if not thousands of them available. From varying price points, you are guaranteed to find one that makes you happy. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you all in the next one.